Welcome to Biblical Archaeology in 5. This morning we're going to begin with origins. So if you have your Bible, turn to Genesis chapter 1. Verses 1 and 2. In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Now, if you're a modern empirical thinker, as most of us are, we read this and we think of impersonal forces, science, geology, evolution, etc. In previous episodes, I've explained that that's not how the ancients thought. The ancient Egyptians, they personalized all of the forces of nature. So you had a god of the air, a god of the sea, a god of darkness. And they believed that those gods, they exercised their will so that anything that happened was a movement of a divine will. So when we read this, we have to be careful. Are we using our modern way of thinking, or do we stop and ask ourselves, what was Moses thinking when he wrote this? And so when we look at this, we realize, oh, biblical archaeology can help us to understand what Moses was thinking about when he wrote this. The first thing I remind you, he's raised in Pharaoh's household, and so he was steeped in the knowledge of the Egyptian mythology, of how the world was created. And he's dealing with Hebrew folk who've spent hundreds of years in Egypt, and they're steeped in Egyptian culture and mythology. And so what does he do? Moses is an apologist par excellence, and he takes the creation story in the Egyptian mythology, where there were 8 gods and goddesses. They were in pairs, and their names were like Nun and Nuned, and Amun and Amunet, and they were called the Ogdo, these 8, the 8. And they were the forces, the power that was behind all of the chaos. Their names were like darkness, and limitless water, and air, and formlessness. And so Moses, brilliantly I might add, he takes those very words, the names of those gods, and he puts it into Genesis chapter 1. And so when he says the earth was without form and void, he's talking of an Egyptian god and goddess. Darkness, god and goddess. The deep, god and goddess. The Spirit of God hovering over in the air, that's another god and goddess. And so, what is he doing? He's writing a polemic, an argument against that creation story of the Egyptians that would have resonated culturally with the Hebrews. And so what he's doing is he is turning their mythology on its ear. And he's saying, Yahweh exercised His divine will. Verse 1, in the beginning God created. It was His will that created all that there is. And so when we read Genesis 1 verses 1 and 2, let's appreciate the biblical archaeology giving us that underpinning to understand that he is arguing against paganism.